It began like any ordinary morning at Washington, D.C.'s Reagan National Airport until one small act of kindness turned into a story that would touch the hearts of millions across the nation. Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana, known for his sharp wit and down-to-earth charm, was boarding a flight to Boston when something unexpected caught his attention. Just a few steps behind him in the boarding line stood Karoline Leavitt, a rising young political figure and communications strategist. She looked exhausted, her suitcase scuffed, her eyes heavy with the strain of days on the road. The flight was overbooked, and though she held a ticket for economy class, a mix-up meant she had no guaranteed seat. As passengers began to shuffle forward, the gate agent's voice grew tense. "We're sorry, ma'am, but the flight is completely full. You'll have to wait for the next one." A ripple of frustration passed through the crowd, but it was Senator Kennedy's voice that broke through the noise. "Ma'am," he said, turning to the attendant with his signature Southern calm, "put her in my seat. I'll take whatever's left." There was a brief silence before murmurs of disbelief filled the boarding area. Kennedy, an older man with a busy schedule, booked for meetings and interviews, was giving up his first-class seat for a woman half his age who wasn't even expecting such a gesture. Karoline protested, "Senator, I can't possibly." But he smiled gently. "You can, and you will. It's just a seat. What matters more is that you get where you need to be." The gate agent, touched and a little stunned, nodded and switched the tickets. As Kennedy made his way to the very back of the plane, squeezing into a narrow middle seat between two strangers, passengers couldn't help but glance at him, some smiling, others shaking their heads in quiet admiration. But that was only the beginning. About an hour into the flight, turbulence hit. The plane jolted sharply, and a few anxious gasps filled the cabin. A woman 2 rows behind Kennedy started to panic, her breathing rapid, her hands shaking uncontrollably. Without hesitation, Kennedy unbuckled his seat belt, knelt beside her, and spoke softly. "Ma'am, it's all right." Deep breaths. "We're safe." "You're safe," he said, his calm voice cutting through the chaos. Others nearby joined in, offering tissues and reassurance. The turbulence eventually subsided, but the atmosphere in the plane had changed. People were talking, laughing, even comforting one another. The senator's act of kindness had somehow rippled outward, transforming fear into connection. When the plane landed in Boston, applause broke out, and not the awkward kind that sometimes greets a safe landing, but a heartfelt round of appreciation. Passengers knew they had witnessed something special, a reminder of how simple human decency could bridge divides in a world that often feels fractured. As for Karoline Leavitt, she waited at the gate, her eyes filled with tears. When Kennedy finally stepped off the plane, carrying his jacket over one arm and his phone in the other, she walked up to him. "Senator," she said, her voice trembling, "thank you. I'll never forget this." He smiled that familiar half-smile and replied, "Just pay it forward someday." That's how we keep the world turning. Later that evening, Karoline shared the story on social media, not to boast, but to honor the moment. Within hours, it went viral. Thousands commented about the senator's humility, others shared their own stories of kindness in airports and bus stations, and soon, hashtags like #PayItForwardFlight and #KennedyKindness were trending across platforms. But the most unbelievable part came the next day. Inspired by the viral post, an anonymous donor stepped forward to fund a nationwide kindness campaign, encouraging travelers to perform random acts of compassion, from giving up seats to helping strangers with luggage, meals, or simply a smile. Airlines even began training staff to highlight these stories mid-flight, turning what was once routine travel into moments of shared humanity. For Senator John Kennedy, it wasn't about fame or headlines. When asked about it by a reporter, he simply said, "The world's not as divided as it looks on TV. Most folks just need a reminder that decency still flies." And perhaps that's the heart of it, the reason this story captured so many hearts. In an era of noise, conflict, and division, one man's quiet choice to give up his seat became a symbol of something we all long for: kindness without condition. As Karoline later reflected during an interview, "That day taught me more about leadership than any classroom ever could." True leadership isn't about power, it's about heart. So, The next time you're at an airport, a train station, or even standing in line at a cafe tilde copyright, remember this story. Remember that sometimes, one simple act, a seat given, a hand offered, a word of comfort can change more than just a moment. It can change lives. Because sometimes, the smallest sacrifices lead to the most unbelievable outcomes.